Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of Fabric Espresso. As usual, I'm Philip and this is Stan.
Stan. Hey.
And today we have a special treat for you. It's called RowLevel Security and we have a Stan who is the perfect person to talk to.
Yep. Thank you very much, Philip. So we're talking today about RowLevel security. We're just announcing this feature. So RowLevel security for SQL Endpoint and Warehouse. And what is this feature? It's basically also the same as you would have in dedicated SQL pools and Azure SQL DB with some slight changes, slight differences. However, what it allows you to do is now actually set more granular control on the table. While previously, if you would grant somebody access to a table, you would grant access to all the rows in that table. However, with RowLevel security, you can now say, okay, I'm going to give you access to a subset of this data. Now, a good use case for that is, for example, if you have multiple departments that have the same data in the same table, and you can actually identify those people that are connecting to their specific departments, you could say, okay, you're from the HR department, you can see your HR roles. You're from the sales department, you can see your sales roles. Typical example as well, what I like to use for this is like you have an orders table. In the orders tables, you've got different sales representatives, and the sales representatives can only see their own sales rows, and the manager can actually see with elevated access, can actually see all the rows. But enough talking about this. Let me just show you how that works. So, as you can see over here, I'm in a warehouse, and I'm just selecting from sales orders table, and let me just show you that I'm not doing anything magical. As you can see over here, we've got Philip and me as the sales representatives, and nothing is happening. I can still see all rows. Now, what I want to achieve with this specific demo, I just want to make sure that I can only see my own rows. Now, 3 steps I usually take to do this. Now, the first step I'll take is I'll create a schema called security. Why do I create a schema called security? You don't have to do this, but for me, I like to keep things organized and making that schema security. I know that all my security objects will be in that schema security. Makes things a little bit easier. And as you can see, it popped up over here. Now, first thing you need to create to actually get this RLS to work is table valued function. And what this does is basically returns a sort of a sub result set. And this tells you, okay, you're allowed to select from this table and you're allowed to see which rows. Now, as you can see here, I'm using the sales rep, which is coming from this specific table over here. You see sales rep. And what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, return the result. So return the row if the sales rep is my username. So my username is actually that username that you just saw. Or if the is role member, so let's say I create a custom role and I create a manager role and I add members to that. If I am a role member of that specific role, I am allowed to see all the rows. Let me just create that function. Once I've created that function, I need to apply this function. And applying, I can do this through a security policy. Now, what does the security policy say? Hey, create security policy. I'm calling this one sales filter. I'm using this specific table valued function I've just created, and I'm specifying over here the sales rep from the sales order table, the table I've just shown. And also make sure you put the state to on. Okay, now I've got this thing in here. And now I'm going to go and select from that table, as you can see over here. If I now run this specific query, you can see I can only see my own rows and not Philip's rows. So basically, RLS ready to run.
Awesome. So in one of previous episodes, you showed us how we can control access to the table, and now you showed us how we can control the access at a more granular level, particularly at the row level. And now with a function, we can define the criteria that will say what rows can I see, and then we create a security policy to apply it on a particular table. Is that so?
Indeed, that's perfectly it. So basically, I took 3 steps because I want to have it in the security schema, but the 2 other steps, indeed, are table valued function security policy. Also, one very important note is this is only for SQL Endpoint and Warehouse. If you still give the people in your organization access to the lake itself using a permission called read all, for example, if they can access those Delta files, the RowLevel security will not be applied to them. Only through queries that are coming through Warehouse or SQL Endpoint will it be applied at this point in time.
Great. So feel free to share comments and questions, and If you like the content, please share, like, subscribe. As always, this is Philip and this is Stan.
Yes. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.